Hello, History of Sexuality students. This is Professor Bowen back with another video, this one about presentations. Over the course of the semester, we're going to have lots of presentations on the various articles that make up our course content. You may have already signed up for a date for your presentation. If you haven't, please do so soon because they're going to start next week. If you have signed up for a presentation, hurrah! Thank you very much. You may be wondering, okay, now what exactly am I supposed to do? What goes into this presentation? How should I structure it? What are the expectations? How do I deliver it? All of that. That is the purpose of this video, to help give you a sense of what I'm looking for in your presentation. The general goal of the presentation is to stimulate discussion and critical thinking among your classmates. The presentation is not a lecture that you deliver to everyone else. It is instead more like discussion leadership, in that what you'll be doing is coming up with a series of questions on your assigned readings and then guiding your classmates through an examination of those questions by way of reference to evidence in the reading that you chose, and also evidence in some of the course content from lectures, previous discussions, previous readings, etc. I'm going to grade you on the basis of how well you generate discussion, how much dialogue you stimulate among your classmates. So then, for your presentation, you want to help us all do a deep dive into the article that you've chosen. And you're going to do that by coming up with a series of questions. These questions should be broad and open. They shouldn't be questions that have a simple yes or no answer. They should be questions that can be discussed for a lengthy period of time and that don't have an obvious answer. The questions that you come up with are going to be related to the questions that your chosen author writes about in their piece. So you can follow through by looking at their argument and asking everyone about it, their evidence and asking everyone about it, etc. In coming up with the questions for your discussion, feel free to use some of the questions that I myself ask on a weekly basis in my own PowerPoint lectures. There are some commonalities in the way that I approach the articles that we discuss in class, and you should feel free to borrow from them. Right? So I often ask things like, how convinced are you by so-and-so's argument? Or how does so-and-so go about trying to prove their argument? What kinds of evidence do they rely on, for example? You can ask questions about the author's methodology, about specific theories or tools or perspectives that they are bringing to bear on this topic. You can situate them within the historiography of the topic that you're discussing, but the goal is to do a really deep critical analysis of the text. So these questions, of which you should have 3 or maybe 4, will form the core of your presentation, and the bulk of the discussion that you have on that particular day will revolve around those questions. You'll come up with them working with your classmates and also by talking to me, because one of the things that you have to do before you give your presentation is consult me during office hours or in a private appointment. And we can do that over Telegram if you just want to chat. We can do it by Skype or Zoom if you want to have a person-to-person talk. But we all do need to get together probably the week before your presentation, just so we're on the same page and that you have a good idea about how to proceed with your questions and the presentation more generally. So now, let's say you've read the article, we've all talked, You've come up with your 3 or 4 critical thinking questions. What else do you need to do for the presentation? What you need to do is make a PowerPoint, a short audio, video, embedded PowerPoint, no more than 15 minutes, please. And then you upload that PowerPoint to Moodle or to Instagram or YouTube, someplace where everyone can watch it. And then over the course of the day, you ask your questions, students respond to them, you respond to their responses, and it goes on and on and on. And on the basis of that, you get your grade for the assignment. Now, obviously, it does not take 15 minutes to type out a series of questions and relay them to your classmates. So you might be wondering, what else is supposed to go into this video that I make? Good question. So here are my suggestions for that. First, I think it would be a good idea if you gave some background information about the historian whose work you're leading discussion on. You can talk about their research, you can talk about their university affiliation or the job that they are currently holding. You can talk about their specialities. You can talk about them more generally. Just give a biographical sketch of the person that you're leading discussion on. Another thing you can do in your video lecture is provide some historical context. Most of the readings I've assigned in the syllabus are connected to the more general topic that we are discussing that week. So if after painting a biographical sketch of the author whose reading you're discussing, you might find it useful to build a bridge between things that we've already talked about in class and the specific article that you are presenting on, so we have a sense of how these different things are related to each other and how your assigned author is building off of or relying on the foundation that we laid earlier in the week through lectures and discussions. A third thing that you could do in your presentation is think about how some of the theories or concepts that your chosen author is working with might apply to other historical or geographical contexts. This would be a particularly interesting opportunity to say something about the relevance of your chosen reading for understanding the history of sexuality in Central Asia or Kazakhstan specifically. We don't, unfortunately, have a lot of readings over the semester that deal with this exact part of the world, but in your video lecture, if you want to make a connection between things you observed in the article and things you have seen or read about here, then please feel free to do so. So those are all examples of things that you can do in your presentation to set up the critical thinking questions that are going to form the core of your presentation. One thing that you should not do, please do not do this, do not summarize the article that you're presenting on. Everyone has read this article. We all know the basic story that the author is telling in it. We don't need an overview of the history that they are sketching out or of the points that they are making. You need to ask questions about that reading that give us a deeper understanding of it and that perhaps problematize some of the things that this author is claiming. But you do not need to give a mini lecture on the article itself because, again, as I said, we've all read it and we don't need that kind of information. You also don't need to do any outside reading or additional research in order to prepare your presentation. You should have enough just on the basis of our course content, to put together your 15-minute video lecture with its biographical sketch of the author, with its historical context for understanding the author and where they're coming at their topic from, and the questions themselves to get through the presentation all right. Okay, so I think that's everything I want to say about the presentation right now. Of course, if you have further questions, feel free to get in touch with me however you would like to do so. And for those of you who haven't signed up, again, please do so as soon as possible so we can get the schedule finalized and everything moving. Bye-bye.